Okay, the texturing is finished, and you might be able to see the kind of thing we're talking about here. It's a little bit tough, but there you go. Just deep little pits that were cut into that with a little ball end widget, and the this portion here has had some lines put into it this direction to go at right angles to the threads. Now when these two parts are put together, the glue will actually become a third puzzle piece. This is one, that's two, and the third puzzle piece will actually flow into, well, you press it in there, but it also flows into these dents, into these grooves and notches, and makes a mechanical lock that's impossible to undo. You'd shatter the stem if you pulled on it hard enough to pull this tenon out. Now, as a repairman, this Delrin tenon thing is kind of something I see a lot. It's a problem-prone area, and it's something that has tends to be, it's certainly not exclusively the case, but it tends to be that beginning pipe makers use this technique on their new pipes because it's simpler than cutting integral tenons as they're known. The barrier to entry to become a pipe maker is less. You don't need to have as much equipment to do it. But the same people have less experience, so they're not familiar with technical issues and specifically the properties of some of these glues. So I get dozens a year of tenons that have pulled out of stems, and it's simply because they thought that the glue was going to adhere properly to these two materials in an adhesive sense, and didn't think of the three-dimensional puzzle piece solution. Now, if you do it this way, it couldn't be more reliable. If you don't do it this way, you're rolling the dice on how long it'll be before that just pops right off of there. So, I'm going to mix up some glue here and show you how to apply it and what to do after the fact. Now, in order to hold a pipe when I'm gluing it, so I got two hands free, I'm going to use one of these whatever they're called, some kind of a reamer, where you turn the knob in the back and these blades expand. Well, they work like a flower, and it works really well to hold a stummel into whatever position you want. If you have one of these to hold this reamer, and I don't even know quite what this thing is. I believe it was sold as a pin vise for people that work on turning pins. I'm not sure how they do them, but I'm pretty sure I bought it years and years ago as a pin holding vise. So any vise will do, but this thing's really handy because it stays centered and one knob does it all, and you don't have a lot of levers flying around. So I'll put them in there like so once the glue's applied, and then I've got both hands free to manipulate whatever I want, and it's rock solid. So mixing glue takes a few minutes, and you sure don't want to watch me do that. So I will shut off the camera and come back when we're ready to apply the glue, because you need to see how that part of it's done. Okay, I'm back. We've got mixed glue. Here's how you do it. And you have to be vigilant with this. You can't just throw some on there, stick it together, and hope for the best. You'll glue a pipe together. What you want to do is apply glue to this post liberally, but you're not going to leave that much on there. All you want to do is like putting asphalt on a chuck hole. If you pretend you're fixing a road, so put on more. You've seen them do that, right? Where they slop a bunch of it on the hole, or the dent in the road, and then they flatten it down and scrape off the excess. And that's what you want to do, because on this half of the join, all that you want is to fill these depressions, the 3D part. If you put too much on here and leave it, when you put the stem over this stub, it will push the glue back into the mortise and you'll glue the pipe together. So, and you can take as long as you need if you use G-Flex epoxy. Again, I strongly recommend the use of that stuff. It's ridiculously tough. It's got a long cure time. I'm not a fan of fast cure epoxies unless you know it's an assembly line type of thing. But if you're doing anything remotely creative like this, where you're paying close attention and have to work slowly and carefully, you don't want to be rushed by knowing that the glue is about to set up. That 5-minute stuff is no good for me. So now we got glue on that post, and we're going to put the pipe in that clamp and get it pretty close to dead vertical. Take another stick, a clean one, and put a good amount in here, because any excess is going to be pushed forward and into the airway, where we'll be able to remove it after the fact. And once again, on your first pass, you're simply trying to push it into all those little dents that you made. And don't worry about getting any on that flat surface. I mean, don't try to, but we're going to wipe that off. And as a handy tidbit, ordinary white kitchen vinegar will remove epoxy as long as it hasn't cured. If the crosslink sets up, there's nothing that will dissolve it. It has to be ground away. But prior to its actually curing, some acids will just remove it like magic, and vinegar is one of those things. So you don't need to spend money on fancy epoxy chemicals to keep your fingers clean and your work clean. Okay, so all of these little dents have now been filled. I've gone up, I've pushed it down, and I'm scraping it side to side like I'm putting frosting on a cake. So those little holes are now full. If we put this on that now, it would probably hold for a while, but it would just be a little tenuous. So we want to put some excess in there, enough that when it flows together, you have a bond with no airspace. It will be almost as if these two pieces were melted together in the sense of rigidity and reliability. It's as if they were cast as one thing. This epoxy is tougher than either of these substances of its own, on its own rather. Now, this is a little tedious, but this is the important part, so I'm making sure that all of this gets on the tape, the video rather, so that you can't say, well, I didn't realize how important that was, and wreck a pipe, because that's what's at stake here. You would wreck a pipe. All right. Now you can see there's a little excess around the hole there. I'm going to use my finger and just give that a quick smear like that and wipe it off. Obviously, if you leave any on that shoulder, it's going to glue itself to the face of the shank. So we got a goodly amount of glue in there. We got epoxy on these threads. Now, whatever you do, make damn sure that you have the emblem side of a stem on the proper side. That'd be the left side. You glue it on upside down, it's not going to fit the other way. See how it just kind of drifts down there? That's the glue talking. Alright, make sure you get it squared up. And then you could actually leave it just like that. But because I'm a slightly anal guy that likes to make damn sure about everything when it comes to accuracy and thoroughness, we're going to put a piece of tape on that in case we have an earthquake or a friend comes to visit and I forgot that it's here and it gets bumped, anything like that. Now move yourself around and look at it from the top, the bottom, the sides, and make sure that it is absolutely perfectly aligned. Because once it's set up, it will not be shiftable. You got to get it right the first time, but you've got a lot of time to adjust this because it's a slow cure glue. Okay, we'll use some, looks like that 1/4 inch masking tape. And after you put the tape on, double check your alignment using a little flashlight. What do I do with my flashlight? Here it is. You can create shadows and see if you've got any little ledges and stuff like that. Okay, I think we got it. The reason for the narrow tape is so I don't cover up the joint. You want to be able to see the seam. If you put a big wide piece of tape over there and you get it crooked, you won't be able to see it. Okay. And there we go. Now we got a couple steps left once it's firmed up, but this is it until it cures. And in summertime it'll be pretty fast, or much faster than it will be in the winter. In the winter, to cure this stuff fully, I'll usually make a little tent of aluminum foil and a heating pad. It'll get up to like 95 or 100 degrees in there and set the epoxy more quickly. So that's it for this step. Sorry it was tedious, but this is important, so I wanted you to see the whole thing. Of course, you could fast forward through it if it was not of interest. So there we go.